This salary rate approval form for Hallie Gunter came before you a little bit ago, and we wanted to look into it a little more, right? And so, because standard practice for us is based on a guideline that we've just kind of followed, where we would go, if someone's moving up a grade, we would, and each grade is 7% as you go up. Yeah, if it's less than grade 14, it'll be 7%. And then we would take half of that, so 3.5%, and then place the person at the step that's just above that. And 90% of the time, that's going to be the minimum step. In this situation, if we were following standard practice, that's where we would place her, would be at step 0. Now, due to extenuating circumstances, we can ask for exceptions. And kind of what is important to me is that as we talk about making an exception, I'm okay with exceptions, but that we're following consistent criteria throughout the county, and what are we looking at to justify the exception. And there's been some communications between folks in the room about it, and from an HR perspective, you know, it's exceptional qualifications, lack of other qualified candidates, internal equity, or department alignment are kind of the criteria as an HR professional I like to look at. In this situation, I think we're focused a lot on department alignment, as this position is going to be supervising another position, and how those two positions fit together, right? And based on my experience, which is different than maybe what's been going on historically at the sheriff's office, is just because you're in a higher grade doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be paid more than someone in a lower grade, because we have all those steps, right? And the way our table works is the highest steps of maybe grade 10 are higher than the lowest steps of like grade 11, and that's pretty normal. But sometimes we'll end up with these situations where like a supervisor will be getting paid less than someone they supervise. And that's where the sheriff's office, typically that won't happen, and they like to make sure that doesn't happen. And I think that's where you're coming from mostly, right? Is you want to make
to some degree.
Okay, so that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay. So historically, I mean, if we're going to go historically, like I said, currently the position that we're replacing, the one that's vacating was a grade 6, step 6. The one that's going to replace them, we're requesting grade 6, step 4, I believe, which is significant, quite a bit lower than the one that's vacating. So historically, when we've done these things, number one, it's kind of the area we focus on as far as the whole functionality of that particular office and what those requirements are for that position, whether it's a supervisor or even just the employee. We try to examine each one of those based on the position, not the person, just to get so you're not saying, oh, I'm taking care of my buddy. Mm-hmm. That's going to go, I'm going to put him up here because I like you, and that's I understand that's what we try to get away from, and that's the whole point of the steps and all that, and having a formula. Well, on the flip side of that, we've done it. I agree with that mentality and that process if the process happens every year, but that necessarily hasn't happened every year with the steps. For an example, currently in our dispatch, we have a gal there that's been in there 5 years that's still currently step 1. Since then, there's been movement into that twice where people have moved into that position and we've had to adjust downward for them because they would be making more than that gal that's still at step 1 that's been in there 5 years. Where technically she should be at step 5 if the way the scale works should work. And I know at one point, I mean, from my understanding, when the scale was developed, it was the steps or 10 steps because it's more fundable. It's easier to fund every year because it's not such a big step. But that was, and I remember that Monday, the comment was, well, we don't give steps because we don't do evaluations on each step. But that wasn't how this was set up at the time. It was basically a longevity. You get the steps as you're here.
Well, I can tell you right here, this guy that sits here is 100% against longevity
Right.
raises.
But then what we need to do is we need to change the salary
But
table. Because
yes.
And
the
that's-
salary schedule was implemented with each step being longevity, saying you start at minimum and by 10 years, you're proficient in your job, and that's what the pay
And
maxes
that would be
out
my
at.
request is
So-
if there's a function, then let's all be on the same page so we can provide that function in order to provide the steps. But that's never been, told to us as far as how those steps are provided. Because then it's our fault because we haven't, for the last 5 years, I'll take that dispatcher, then that's our fault for not coming to the commission every year saying, we're requesting a step increase for this person. But then we were told 4 years ago, don't ask for any, we're focus on budget B. So there's a lot of just, no one knows how we're doing these things. So with this in mind, when I put a person at that step 4, it is kind of putting the cart before the horse, but if the steps aren't going to be met, she'll never catch up. And if it goes any lower, when you see the people that she will supervise, even throughout the steps, she'll still never catch up. And I know that's what these steps are made for, even if you increase the level, but there's so much overlapping on the dollar value that, because there's only a 1 grade difference. And if you're going to put that responsibility of a supervisor, depending on where she starts out, she'll never increase and surpass
How many
anybody.
people is she supervising?
5 full-time, 2 part-timers.
And what
And it's-
does the role of supervisor entail?
Well, it'd be everything to include, well, I've got the job description right here, which is, definitely there's more responsibilities in the job description, in addition to what their normal job is. So it's all there.
And the reason I'm asking that is we just had a discussion about this with our road and bridge, or that department. And
Right.
there was a supervisor supervising 2 other people that were supervisors that had nobody underneath them.
Right.
And I just, anyway, that's why I'm asking.
And it's a
these questions.
standalone office. It's not like her supervisor's in the same office, It's Captain Ames. So other than that, she basically runs that office, the day-to-day and the end of the day closing of everything and balancing everything. So,
This lead is a little bit different than the other county leads.
correct.
This one actually does a little bit more supervisory and line work, whereas some of the other leads is just the go-to person
Right.
or fills in when,
She's on the line as well.
Yeah.
But she deals with the day-to-day complaint, she deals with scheduling, she deals with anything else other than the ultimate disciplinary part, which would fall in Captain Ames, that would be in her wheelhouse. And I guess my only concern would be if I did go lower, and if the current function that we're doing as far as steps are the way it is, and I'm using our dispatcher as an example, she's gonna be stuck there for 5 years, just using her as an example. And because whenever we've moved those 2 new dispatchers in there, we've had to adjust the ones going in there to a lower pay because of that internal equity, or our morale would go to crap. There's a gal in there that's training these new people, and if we would have kept that pay scale the same, this new person that doesn't even know how to push or even answer the radio is making more money than this gal that's training her, that's been there for 5 years, and she's been stuck on step 1. So it goes the other way as well, and that's my concern. If we don't adjust now, she may be stuck
So here's
with the current function of how things are done.
here's the dollars we're talking. So if we put this individual that's being promoted at a step 3, she would be at 1611, and the next highest paid individual would be at 1615 per hour. And that's based on next year's dollar amounts. If we put them at the step 4, which is what I believe Tony wants, then that individual that would be, the lead would be at 1634 an hour, and that other individual would be at 1615 an hour. So it's a difference of, I think, if we put that person in a 3 or in a 4. So should she make 4 cents less an hour, which is $83 a year, or should she make more? So that's what it comes down to, and I think those are the two
And I guess
options
my
that are on
biggest
the
thing
table.
is, I guess my biggest concern would be, is it the dollar value or is it the morale for me? And I'm going, well, for me, it's more of the morale of the small group that we deal with, because it does make a difference as far as if you're gonna expect her to do things, or whoever, I say her, but whoever, you know, it is, and that's why every time we had to push a new dispatcher in there, we'd had to look going, oh gosh, our well-experienced one is still at this level, even though a person's been here longer. I mean, I get it, but it's trying to manage what the function that we have now, and I understand, I agree with you. Overall, we need to overhaul it, so.
And it's happening.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
And that's why, but I'm just dealing with what we have now.
But-
That's why.
And then I come back to when we had that discussion the other day, and Jason, and we didn't even talk about the 5 people, but there's inequities
Right.
everywhere within the county. And
And I'm all for restructuring, but like I said, I'm just going based off the structure we have now.
well, when we first come in, the coroner was making $20,000 less than any other elected official. You as an elected official
Right.
and Steve are making $20,000 more than all the other elected officials. I mean, I have people that I'm supervising that make $20,000 more than I do. So there's a lot of that happens already. But we're gonna correct that. But this specific situation, one, I don't wanna start creating more problems as we go along.
Correct.
But I do understand the situation right here, but what's the solution?
Yeah, so I am comfortable with exceptional step placement. And I think there's lots of, the morale and the points that Tony makes are good. I do think the fact that the employee that is being paid more than her new supervisor, that's partly because she has more time, right? She does have more time.
Correct.
And
Which works
But not much, right?
a couple
One-
years.
couple of years. And so I, right before this meeting, Christy and I were talking about step 3, step 4. The step 3 makes sense to me, but again, step 4 is just a matter of sense. I just want to be careful with setting a precedent on what we're making the decision on. So
And I understand that as well.
I'm okay with an exceptional placement, and I really do appreciate that we're analyzing it this way, and that's kind of what I wanted out of this whole
Right.
thing too.
And same here.
Yeah.
Because on the other spectrum, there's a problem too.
Yeah, but we need to call it an exception,
Right.
and that things like this need to be worked out.
And I'm okay with that.
And I have no problem doing that. And
Yeah.
for 23 cents, an exception for this situation, but it is an exception.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's not setting a precedent for anything else, and we're gonna have the same discussion or a harder discussion if anything else comes before us the rest of this year until we
Yeah.
get something set up.
Right.
And how we'll address that on the SAR approval form, or how we've done it in the past anyways, is just put promotion and internal equity considered. And then if you ever see internal equity considered, then that's the cases where we have to deviate from policy, basically.
Well, and I don't even wanna put that on it. I wanna put exception.
Well,
and the reason-
exception, internal equity, it's the same thing.
But
Exceptional placement.
internal equity means that anybody else comes and says, well, this is my internal equity, this is why I'm doing,
Yeah,
and,
well, but it's an exception because it's not a placement on here where it should be per practice. So you get a promotion, it's 0.5% for the grade difference. So you move up 2 grades, it's 7% if it's under grade 14. And then you look on the scale, they should go here. If you have to either, same thing happens with the demotion. You consider internal equity like with your dispatch.
Right.
And so, I mean, exception and internal equity, it's a PC way of saying exception.
And I'd,
But we
yeah,
can start
Well,
using the word exception if you prefer.
and I like exception
I do too.
per the Bannock County Commissioners.
I actually do too, Chris.
That's-
I think,
That means that
Okay.
we had a thorough discussion about it. It
yeah,
isn't something that just come, a paper that was put in with, oh, yeah. Anyway, I like that more detail about it because we've had more discussion about it and
Well, and I think it just helps moving
Darryl?
forward for the,
Yeah,
what's your feelings?
no, I'm good with that, Ernie, with you putting that, because it's been a discussion, but, this is just why we're gonna have to get on it.
Yeah.
This whole thing, we gotta get started probably in the next month or so if we're gonna get it ready for next year. So,
Well, that's a discussion that we're gonna have. Jeff would actually like to bring in
okay.
some outside resources and
Yeah.
look things over. But so that's another discussion though.
okay. No, I'm good with it. I'm good with taking care of the employee on this one.
So step 3 or 4?
Step 4 with the it's 23 cents.
And we have it right here, you can,
Has the back been done?
oh shoot, it has not.
Oh.
But we have everybody in the room.
Ryan, that's yours.
Oh, it has not, the back's not been done. Do we want to pass it around, or what do we want to?
If
You
you
could just sign it
if
now.
you feel comfortable,
That
I
we
mean,
know
just
there's
like us
funding.
signing it, if you feel comfortable signing it,
We know there's funding.
all
So,
but Kedron, right?
Yeah, and I can do the payroll side downstairs, but
Okay.
there's money this year, so I know we're good.
Okay, that,
I think the other one is already done though.
This one.
So-
But what's the effective
This
date
one I've
on
already
those? We might
signed.
need to
I can
adjust the
just check on
effective
this
date.
one real quick.
okay.
Are we
can't
good with
remember.
our replacement of her, the grade?
Yeah, they're
So
both
we can-
together.
Okay, and we're good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was
That's-
good.
that's a
We just-
level.
We couldn't put that person in
I just
Julie's
wanna-
spot
right.
until,
And I just want to get that start date, just
Yeah.
because.
so do you wanna do a start date of, well, today's Thursday, so Monday?
That'd be
Or do you
nice.
wanna do it
Uh,
last Monday? We could make that one, no, we can't because they weren't forced.
And we did her orientation on Monday.
But she hasn't worked full-time, and she won't have time to work full-time because today's the last day of the week.
Right.
So we'll have to we'll change the date. to
Adjust
next
that
Monday.
and initial it.
Okay.
Yeah, for Tara, right?
Yes, please. All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we sign these salary rate approval forms,
Effective the 10th.
effective the 20th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Was there anything else? No, that's it?
I think it was just those,
Okay.
yeah.
What was the date that we were,
On the 20th, it goes on the front.
well, for the, oh, I don't know what you're looking at, it might be on there already.
All right.
Is that it? Thank you.
With that being said, we will be at recess till